Now, I did previously say it sounds a bit like a cult, and I also said it seems completely unnecessary, but now I've seen it, yeah, fair dues. Still unnecessary, but fair dues. Hi, it's me again, and we talked previously on this channel, made a video about it months ago now, called The Pledge. The BBC Pledge, which sounded like a cult thing. This is something that has to be recited before they make any in-house productions at the BBC. It sounded a bit like a cult thing to me. But I've got a copy of it now. One of you brilliant people found it and sent it over to me. I've sat on it for months. It's just been in my to-do list, and I just stumbled across it in my save stuff. So I thought we could look at it today because it is unnecessary. The BBC shouldn't have to do this before every production because it should be obvious to everybody involved. But they do it. Let's have a look, and then I'll tell you about why they have to do it. Let's have a look. Implementing the pledge is simple and straightforward. At the start of each BBC Studios production, the executive producer reads the pledge to the entire unit and signs it, committing themselves to ensuring that everybody working on a production remains respectful and inclusive and adheres to BBC values. Lisa Hardy, Director of HR of BBC Studios Productions. The pledge was born out of wanting production leads to take accountability, but more importantly to empower the rest of the crew to be able to call out and address any kind of poor behaviour without fear of repercussion. Yeah, that is one thing the BBC needs, because there's been many times in the past with certain 70s television presenters and radio presenters that people have tried to speak up and been shut down by the BBC. Even with the Bashir thing, you know, it was dirty behind the scenes how we got the Diana interview. People tried to speak up about it. The BBC shot them down and even ruined their career with one of the individuals, and had to pay them quite a lot of compensation recently. So this shouldn't be necessary. They shouldn't have to do any of this. The BBC should be open and clean and honest at all times. The fact that they have to do this shows that there's still a problem within the BBC. Doesn't it? The fact that this is needed shows that there is a problem within the BBC. You don't hear any other production companies having to do something like this. So let's have a look at what the actual pledge says. We want BBC Studios to be a safe place for every person that works here. Every individual should be treated equally, regardless of their age, disability, sexuality, gender, race, religion, marital or employment status. At the BBC, we expect everyone to read and adhere to our code of conduct. So that's fair so far. I think that's fair. That's how I live my life. Everybody is equal to me. I'm not above everybody and no one is above me. I don't care what your sexuality is, what the colour of your skin is. I don't care. We're all in this together. But they have to write that down. It shouldn't be necessary, should it? Right? What else does it say? I, the executive producer of this programme, am committed to ensuring that everyone working on this production adheres to the BBC values. I will drive a culture of inclusion and respect. I will fully support colleagues who raise legitimate concerns about inappropriate behaviour, and I will ensure that concerns are followed up in a timely and satisfactory manner. Let's hope they do stick to that, because as we said a minute ago, they have a history of not doing those exact things, and the fact that it has to be written down shows that the culture still permits that somewhat, doesn't it? Doesn't it? None of this should be necessary at all. It shouldn't, but it is, because it's the BBC. If you have a concern, please contact a line manager, your head of department or executive producer in the first instance. Alternatively, you can speak to your local HR contact. So they want you to raise the concern with your line manager and everything, but then they go on to give you bullying and harassment helpline numbers, film and TV charity phone numbers. In other words, phone them, because you probably get more joy out of them. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting to see that. If you want to read the whole thing, I'll put a link in the description. You can go and have a look. Because I did say it was a bit culty at first, and now I've seen it, I think, yeah, fair dues. It shouldn't be necessary. Massively shouldn't be necessary. But if the culture at the BBC is still a bit sketchy, then maybe it is necessary just to remind people to blooming well behave themselves and act like decent human beings for once. And just to wind me up at the end here, because I don't understand, right? I've said it a million times on this channel. I don't understand how you can have the BBC over here that wants 3.7-ish billion quid a year from TV licence fees. But over here, you can have a company called BBC Studios that is commercial and sells programmes and owns commercial television channels, UK TV, for instance. How are they allowed to use the BBC name if they're commercial? And you've got BBC over here that want all your free money. And it just winds me up. So they've stuck this at the bottom, probably just to boil my piss. Look, BBC Studios is a commercial subsidiary of the BBC Group with profits of 226 million on sales of 1.6 billion. They are now turning over, BBC Studios, 1.6 billion. ITV, the whole thing of ITV, only turns over 1.4 billion. They're turning over more than ITV just from a sub company. How much could they make if they tried? Don't forget, it's not just BBC Studios. They have BBC Productions Limited, BBC Distribution. I think there's like 6 or 7 of these BBC commercial companies. How much could they make if they went proper commercial? They wouldn't need the licence fees. So I wasn't going to talk too much about the telly licence in this one, but I just boiled my piss then putting that at the bottom there. If you can make this kind of money that other TV channels manage to survive on, you don't need television licence fees, do you? I don't know. Let me know what you think about it all down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because that way hopefully I'll see you in another video again soon, won't I? Ta-da.